My name is Annetta Lozo. Our family has always been very military-oriented. My husband was in the military, in the RCAF, and I was always interested in military history.
Name is Earl Morris. I was already involved as a volunteer in the museum and archives, specifically the archives, where my job has been scanning old photographs, and I'm in my 7th year of that.
My name is Jim Ogston, creator and former curator of the South Letters Regimental Museum.
My name is Grace Christie. Well, I was already doing research here on other things. I just really have enjoyed it since I retired.
Matt Klimaszewski. I came to this community in 1993. I was posted here. I was in the military and I was posted to the big base.
I've enjoyed working as a volunteer in this environment. Specifically in this one, it was a closer cooperation between staff and volunteers than is perhaps usual.
Well, at first it was kind of awe-inspiring because everyone that I was involved with was very highly educated, and I had only high school graduation, and most of everything that I'd learned after that was self-taught. So near the end, it was very kind of comforting to know that I'd been accepted into the group, and my opinions were used most of the time.
It was very rewarding. I was really quite impressed at how tolerant the staff were about permitting volunteers to give their opinion and their insight into things. So I was very impressed with the Esplanade staff for how they welcomed us and urged us to participate. It's actually quite refreshing.
And I was the only woman at that time, and it was mostly just staff. And I'm sure I sat with my mouth open for most of the first few meetings because I could not believe the planning, the work, the details. And then I decided, since I was the only woman, my job was to say, don't forget the women, which I said fairly frequently. And I'm sure they wouldn't have anyway, but I just thought I should nudge them, so. Well, it was a wonderful experience. It sure opened my eyes to what goes on.
I was involved about 2 years, and I put about, I'd say 250 plus hours in.
Several hundred hours.
I put in a few hours. I did the trench system that you see in the background. And
I'd say certainly in excess of a couple of 100 hours.
Well, I know one year I put in 500. I read every newspaper, Medicine Hat News, between 1914 and well into 1919. Luckily, they were digitized and I only had to read the weeklies. Otherwise, I'd still be doing research probably.
As a volunteer, you help out with the exhibit, but it gives you a sense of belonging.
From beginning to end, I learned something every day I was here.
You know, it came to something. It was nothing, and then all of a sudden there it is sitting in there. It's great.
Sometimes not agreeing, and more often agreeing, thank goodness. But we did manage to put it all together, and that was great.
And military people, career people, usually just find themselves visiting communities. And so this community I've stayed in longer than I've lived anywhere else. And being part of this committee actually made me feel for the first time that I was becoming part of a community. And so that was tremendously rewarding because I actually feel now, seeing this display and knowing that I helped with it, that I'm actually part of Medicine Hat.
The most significant part for me with the exhibit and the learning aspect was the realization of what effect it had on the community with roughly 2,000 individuals signing up during the war, not necessarily at the beginning, but 2,000 in total, roughly 1/5 of the population.
I think I would like them to see the mural on the wall, on the far wall, and perhaps they could recognize a picture of one of their relatives and realize that there was a lot of men and women went from Medicine Hat area to serve in that war.
And I also learned they were so keen and eager to go. And now we know what they were going to. It's hard to not, you think of that, but they just thought they were going off some big adventure or be over by Christmas. So I really learned that Medicine Hat did its bit and then some.
I think I've always studied history with the aspect of what was going on for the Great War in Europe. And what was so refreshing and interesting was that to realize that this event actually affected millions of people outside of the area of combat, and to see how it affected them. And for this town, this was an enormous event, an all-encompassing event that, shattered some lives. And so it was interesting to see a whole new perspective on it.
Well, because I did the trench system, I'm quite proud of that. It gives a little bit of a feel what it might have been like.
One was that I had a personal interest from my uncle's involvement in World War I, but also as a citizen of the community, trying to present what the general public would like to see.
I think a little common sense every once in a while. The rest of them would get off on a tangent on big words and ask me what I thought. Well, I had to bring it down to my level, so.
The staff here would not have had the time to do all the research I did. And it's interesting to me to read some of Tim's panels, because I can say, oh, I found that. Some of the stuff that he used in his panels, I actually found it when I was reading newspapers. So.
I have talked to friends and relatives as well as military personnel.
Pretty well everybody I talked to when we first opened up, and during the time that I was on the committee too.
Everyone. Everyone that I know knows of the exhibit, because I feel it's something that they should know what their community has done.
Everybody. I'm sure. All my friends, I'm a retired teacher, all the retired teachers, anybody that I know. I went to the teachers' convention this year with the Esplanade booth, and anybody that walked by that I knew, I said, hey, come on over, have you seen?
I made sure that I advertised just how personal in nature this was going to be, how this was going to be how the Great War was experienced by Medicine Hat. It wasn't just some expose of what happened, which you can find in any book. And as a result of that, I think I helped to encourage the interest of those various social groups and service clubs, to the extent that I know some of them contributed financially to helping this exhibit.
I would certainly encourage other museums to look closely at involving more volunteers.
The volunteers bring a little bit of a fresh outlook, more what am I going to want to see when I get to that museum.
It's important that we have a community involvement in exhibits like this, because it gives a total different perspective.
So yes, I think it's a marvelous idea.